All right, good day, class. Today is the introduction video to the summer school class of AP Art History. So what we're going to do is this class, we're going to go through the timeline from beginning to modern time right now of art and its association, what it is, pieces of art, and basically how art is depicted, not just through paintings and things like that, but also through pictures, sculptures, architecture, things like that. Okay, so hopefully you learned something new in this class, and I really do hope you actually do. The goal is for you to have an appreciation for art as well as history and to give you some knowledge that when you see something, you can be like, okay, this is from this era, or this is at least this type of art is from this time period. Okay, so without further ado, let us begin. So, for those of you who are new to the class, let me say this: the way I do things is like this. If it's stuff is written in red, you do not have to write it in the notes. You do not need the packet to write notes. You can write the notes down on a sheet of paper, but as long as your name's on it and you turn it into the basket next to the door, you're good. Okay. Uh, Again, you don't need the packet. What you do need, if you don't have the packet, is you need to write on the side warm up, question, answer notes, things like that, so I can see where your notes are, where your response to the questions are, and where the section is for the warm up. Okay, that's all I really need. So in this class, like I'm saying, um, the definition of art history is the academic study of the history and development of painting, sculptures, and other visual arts. The topics and type of art that we'll be discussing in this class varies. Okay, so we have first off um, prehistoric art, which is not on this list, but we are going to be talking about it today in this video. Ancient art, medieval art, Renaissance, Mannerism, and the list is going to go on and on. Rococo, Romanticism, Realism, Impressionism, Surrealism, Cubism, things like that. So we're going to go through it all, okay, in this summer school class. Okay. Granted, some of them will not be spending as much time than other ones, but I am going to try to get as much as we can. Okay. All right. So here is your warm-up picture. Basically, the warm-up picture always starts off the same. What do you see? Okay. Analyze the picture. What do you see? Okay. Um, the second question is basically, if you don't have the packet, it's what do you think is going on? After analyzing this picture, really look at it, look at every aspect from side to side, up and down, and every which thing possible, and analyze it. And then, what's going on here? What's the story? What do you think is happening? In your interpretation, what do you think is happening in this picture? Okay. So here's the thing. Before we move on to the notes, um, those of you guys who've never had this class, you may not be ready for the pace of things. I do move on fast because, again, this is a video. I do not do the lectures as I do in class. I usually stop for you guys to write down stuff, things like that. But since this is a video, I figure you can stop it at any time if you need to go back and things like that. So, again, you are in control when you're watching this video. So take advantage of that. Okay. Do not just, oh, well, he went on. I can't do anymore. No, go back, stop it, pause it, things like that. Okay. So let's start off with the prehistoric art, which starts around 40,000 BC up until 4,000 BC. Um, Now, this was a main way for the ancient caveman, in a sense, to kind of keep records. This is their form of writing, to basically keep records of stuff that happened in their life, in their time. Um, Many civilizations used to keep track of their history and significant events, things that happen, a good hunt, um, bad weather, you know, if the herd didn't come through, or if a big one came through or something like that. A lot of it was, put down on cave art. Now, the earliest existing cave art is dated back to 40,000 years ago, which is the upper Paleolithic era. Now, many of the oldest art caves can be found in France and Indonesia. Now, that doesn't mean that they are just limited to those areas. There's been other prehistoric art found in all over, Asia, Japan, Korea. There's some in Australia, Africa, America, and again in European countries. So, if you look on the picture to your right, that is a cave art painting from Europe, France, if I remember it correctly. Now this picture is just a little diagram of where the prehistoric caves have been found. As you can see, majority, like I said, Japan, China, Australia, Africa, um, parts in Europe, Norway up on top, and America. Now the thing is, there were different eras during the prehistoric time. There was Stone Age, and during this time, much of the art at the time was called rock art, mainly found in Scandinavia and in Russia. Now, when we think of, you know, cave art, we usually think of something that has been put on rock. And there are some cases where the art was actually engraved into the rock, chipped away and things like that to engrave it. So instead of putting stuff on, they chiseled away. So that was another form of art. And the another era was the Mesolithic. This again, the art had changed from before, and from this time now, the art went from caves to the sides of cliffs and mountains, for it to be displayed in a sense. Um, Also, the subject of the artwork was mainly about people instead of animals. So that's the difference between the cave art and the art that was displayed on in the outside. Now, people were more, uh, in a sense, had more energetic poses. They were dancing, they were fighting, they were gathering food, stuff like that. They weren't just there, standing still. They were actually doing some type of gesture. So that shows you something about the art. Now, if whoever is painting it or creating it um, is taking notice of people's movements and depicting that on art. Now, other pieces of art that were created were pots and bowls and even necklaces, which they called pendants back then. So it's not just now record keeping, it's, you know, they now have a life. They have a civilization where they can now appreciate art and do what man really loves to do, which is create. And so that's what they did. Now, here is your first question. Why do you think it was so important to early man to keep record of their history, stories, and significant events? So think about it, write that down. If you need help to start off the sentence, to express your ideas, there's a part written on the bottom. It says, I think it was important for early man to record their history because, and explain your answer. Why do you think it was so important? Okay. The other thing is, why do you think they didn't just rely on speech alone? Okay, why didn't they just rely on speaking like how we do now, as opposed to writing it down, drawing it down? You know, so think about that one and then respond. Again, if you need help on how to start it, it's there on the bottom. I think they didn't rely on speech because, and explain. Okay. So again, I'm going to stop the video right here. I'm going to say go to the next slide right now. Um, but you just pause it if you need to write the stuff down. Don't just let it keep running. Okay. Okay. Now we're getting to the Bronze Age. Now, it started in Europe and it spread like wildfire because the thing is, bronze was it was very sturdy. Okay, it was first used in tools, but then later artists would use it. Okay, um, the first bronze items were weapons. Helmets, axes, swords, things like that. Later on, lures and hats were created. Now, if you look at the picture to your right, those things on top, those are bronze hats, or they call them golden hats, uh, because bronze has a sort of similar kind of look of gold, but it's really not. Um, so then later on, the Iron Age comes up. Now, this changed um, because the thing is, bronze is very scarce at this time. Bronze is a natural material, whereas iron is made by combining two elements together. Now, the thing is, um, bronze compared to iron is more feeble. It bends and things like that. Whereas iron is a lot more stronger, you know, and the thing is, it can be produced more than bronze can be dug up. So it's not as scarce and it's stronger. So why not go with that? But again, first thing that's created is weapons. Okay. Later on, artists would use iron to create things like plates and knives, pots and cups and things like that. Um, Jewelry, things like that. So if you look on the picture to your right, again, on the bottom part, that is a uh, iron knife that was discovered back from the Iron Age. So due to their ability to recreate iron, it was used everywhere, basically. Um, Coins were made of iron. So if you look at the picture to your right, there are some iron coins. Jewelry was made of it as well. Bracelets, necklaces were common. The Greeks and Romans, they would use the iron coins. And thing is, if you look at the coins, many of them were curvy. Now, at this time too, the people who were creating these coins wanted to give kind of like an artistic feel, and a lot of the Celtic artist style was used on these coins. Okay, so there is a style, and that's what's known as the Celtic style. Now, here is your second question. Why do you think that weapons were the first things that were made when the Bronze and Iron Age came about? Why do you think it was weapons first and not something else? You know, why not art stuff? Why not, you just basic tools? Why do you think it was weapons? Okay. So again, if you need help to start it off, it's on the bottom. I think that weapons were made first because explain. Um, the second question is, why do you think artists use those types of metals to create art? Just because it's there, why do you think they said, you know what? We have iron, we know how to make it. Let's use it to make bracelets and necklaces and rings and things like that. Why would they use that type of metal? Okay. So started off, I think that artists use these metals because, and explain your answer. Why do you think so? Now, the thing is with these questions, um, it's your opinion, and you cannot be wrong unless you do one of three things. One, you don't answer. Two, you copy off somebody. So if you're watching this video at home, I don't know how you're going to copy off somebody unless they set you a picture of the answers, which is not a smart move on their point or yours. So I wouldn't copy it because I do read these. Third thing is if your answer is so left field it makes no sense whatsoever. Why would they make weapons from tools of iron or make weapons from iron and bronze? Because Mickey Mouse said so. No, that is not a good answer. Okay. So, time is running short on this video, so there will be a second one on the Egyptian side. Okay, so be sure you look at that. Okay, it's going to be part 1.2. Okay, look for that video. Okay, and that will be the end of the first lesson. All right, so look for that video again. It'll be up shortly. See you guys later.